Alrighty. Um, Hello. As the title suggests, I am going to talk about the criticisms of The Force Awakens, or talk about the negative uh, reception it has gotten on the internet. And I actually have a YouTube user who a video I saw. I've seen um, many videos of in which the people talk about their how they feel about the Force Awakens and review it and all that jazz. Um, Doing this now because next month the film comes out on Blu-ray and DVD and all that. So the user's name is name_here, and he I don't know this. I mean, I watched many people's reviews of Force Awakens. There were positive reviews, and then there were some negative reviews. I saw the movie like 3 times within a week after the film first came out, and I liked the movie really. Uh, that was what I said after I saw it the first time after the premiere, and I gotta say, it is entertaining. But with that said, and after this kind of this hype that happened, hype died down now. People are starting to see things differently with the film. And name here, he has like some cross lines for certain characters. I'm not going to read all those, but because a big reason is because the guy is comparing it to A New Hope. Because a lot of the criticism is this film is like a remake of Episode 4, and Episode 7 should be original, which I do agree with. But anyway, onto it. Name here said, my problem with the movie is its entire plot. I mean it. Let me show you in detail. Rebel Poe has important information to the Resistance. Gets intercepted by Kylo Ren and the First Order, so he places the information in BB-8 and sends him off into the desert, who gets captured and tortured, only to be later saved by someone in a stormtrooper suit, although this time it's an actual stormtrooper. Yeah. Poe gets captured. I'm sorry if that kind of sent. Yeah. I guess it was just me reading that. I kind of confused myself. But yeah, BB-8 gets captured by a little junker and then freed by Rey, the young Force-sensitive orphan with great destiny ahead of them, who helps him to get to his destination. The First Order learn about the droid and send stormtroopers after it. Then a trio, which is made up of Rey, Finn, and BB-8, escape on the Millennium Falcon by accidentally running by it and accidentally running into Han and Chewie, who have debts to criminals. The old mentor figure Han tells Rey about the Civil War and the Jedi. He says that Luke lost his student, Ben, to an old evil man, Snoke. The student killed other Jedi, and Luke became a hermit. They need to take BB-8 to the Resistance, but first they have to run by a bar, which is run by a small and goofy, force-sensitive, almost 1,000-year-old alien named Maz, and get a lightsaber. Ben wants to leave to escape the First Order, but changes his mind. The First Order uses Death Star, or Star Killer, I should say, to blow up the New Republic's planets because they know that the Republic supports the Resistance. And Rey goes to Maz's storage and has a Force vision. First Order attacks the bar, and Ren captures and interrogates Rey on board of the Star Killer base. The rebels discuss the weak point of the Star Killer. They send a small infiltration group to the surface of the Skywalker, or Star Killer, to disable the shields. The old mentor Han faces his son Ren gets killed while Ren watches and screams no. Rey and Ren fight, and Ren offers her to join the dark side, but she refuses. Pilots fly in a trench and shoot the weak point, blowing the whole thing up just before they explode. They explode the planet, or blow up the planet, or Leia and the Resistance are. R2 activates and tells where the exiled Luke is. So Rey goes to the same planet to be trained by Luke. And basically what was scratched out was Rebel Leopo, important information of rebels instead of resistance. Gets intercepted by Vader, and the Empire instead of First Order. Basically R2 is BB-8. Luke is Rey. At one point when they escape for one moment, Finn is Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan. And then, you kind of get the gist of what this was. He has more to say, but that was the gist. Basically, there's all these parallels to Episode 4 with elements of 5 and 6. Such as like Vader offering Luke to the dark side and wanting Luke to join him, like an Empire. Small group on Endor, and Endor's crossed off, and it's the surface of the Star Killer base in which they have to disable the shields. Also, the planet where Maz is on, which is like Yoda, who is basically a female Yoda, it's basically Dagobah. And yeah, Luke is now assumed the role of Obi-Wan also. And that's just all that. I think people kind of get that now, but this is an interesting comment. And it goes on. Name here also says, also, Ren equals Luke with light dark side switches, or light and dark side switched, including Father, who offers to change the side while standing on a bridge. And a bit from the expanded universe, Kylo Ren Ben Solo equals Darth Cadus or Jason Solo. Ren's outfit is similar to Riven's outfit. I've kind of always screwed some names up. In Star Wars, some of the names are interesting. Plus, it's late at night, so that's another reason why I always do these videos at night. Anyway, also, this film did a lot of backtracking and making some previous victories and character development seem almost pointless if you think. From being a war hero general who helped save the galaxy, Han Solo goes back to being a smuggler who owes money to criminals. No further character development in his future is possible for obvious reasons, being dead and all. From one of the leaders of a small resistance fighters in 30 years, Leia becomes one of the leaders of a small group of resistance fighters. Also, she didn't develop her force powers at all. Sorry. Luke got to learn the story of his father and get in touch with Obi-Wan and Yoda and Anakin's ghosts and learn from them. He repeats their story. Obi-Wan lost his student to an evil old man. Student killed another Jedi. Obi-Wan became a hermit who gets another learner years later. Luke lost his student to an old evil man. Student killed other Jedi. Luke became hermit who gets another learner years later. Nobody has learned anything from the Great Jedi Purge. We finally have killed Palpatine in Episode 6. But it doesn't matter, because the remnants of the Empire got themselves another force-strong, disfigured old man in a robe who likes to appear as a big hologram, as to lead them. We destroyed 2 Death Stars to prevent what happened to Alderaan. Doesn't matter, because the First Order somehow got funds to make an even bigger one and blow up 5 planets. First Order remnants of the Empire didn't learn from past mistakes, and their Star Killer base has a similar weakness as previous Death Stars. Had a load of convenient coincidences. BB-8 meets Rey, the young Force sensitive, in the desert, and she frees him. The only stormtrooper with a conscience takes part in capturing Poe and helps him escape. Finn falls close to the settlement where BB-8 and Rey are. Millennium Falcon that was stolen years ago happens to be in the exact planet settlement, really close to escaping heroes. Rey happened to see how this ship has been worked on, so she knows how to fly it even better than Han Solo. Han and Chewie just happen to fly by and see the Falcon. They stop at that alien cantina, of which the owner happens to have Anakin and Luke's lightsaber, which Luke lost in the Cloud City over 30 years ago after his hand was cut off. Finn used to be a janitor on Starkiller and knows exactly how to destroy it. Han and Finn accidentally find Rey at this Starkiller station. Also, separation by earthquake. And yeah, that's what he had to say. I'm sorry in the beginning if it was it seemed a little all over the place. I was trying to get as clear as what he wrote down as possible, and sometimes it's just easier to read it, but whatever. I think I did. Um, I think I did a decent job of that. You know, and so here are some of my thoughts. Uh, as a film, it's good. It's a good film. It's an entertaining film. Star Wars, it's kind of like, I don't know. After time, I distanced myself from the movie. I kind of thought it, and I'm kind of like, I don't know about this now. I think a big part of it was the fact that I really wanted to be wrong about this movie in the sense that I wanted it to be good, and which is you want every movie to be good that you go and see. But the thing is, I made some videos that you can find on here where I had my doubts about, you know, Disney owning Star Wars, and but at the end, I'm just like, I just have to stop and just accept this movie for what it is. Any kind of doubts, I just kind of need to just set aside and absorb this new movie. That way I can properly judge it without any preconceived negative notions I had uh, about the film. And basically, uh, similarities between uh, episode episode 7 and 4, in which 5 and 6 is fine, as it needed to take elements from the popular trilogy, is not a good valid reason to dismiss the similar cases as a whole, as this is not a reboot where that would be necessary. This is a sequel, Return of the Jedi. This is basically what I have to say, because amongst other things, because really that is true. Um, after distancing myself and after seeing it in the theater uh, multiple times, I really saw the similarities between those films, and I'm just like, if this was a reboot, like they're trying to reboot the series, that could be fine, and that would be fine if this was a reboot, but it's advertised as episode 7. Um, it's a sequel to episode 6, and they basically ruined the end of 6, really, if you think about it, because all the hard work that Luke, Leia, and Han did, and in many ways, it was even Luke who brought balance to the Force by bringing his father back from the dark side. All of that now is just for nothing. It's like, well, yeah, they had a little victory, but the Empire wasn't broken, even though both of the leaders of Palpatine and Vader are dead. It'd be kind of hard to function without a leader, because yeah, you have all those star destroyers with stormtroopers and officers, but also I think a big bulk of, or I guess I would imagine a big bulk of uh, the uh, commanding officers would possibly be on the Death Star. I would imagine that they would be, because that's like that's like where they all come together, and just uh, that's like the headquarters, for the Empire. And Return of the Jedi is the Death Star. Aside from like the bases on Endor, yeah, the great victory that was had in Return of the Jedi is no longer valid, and Luke didn't learn from the mistakes of the Jedi before him. So, whoops. Another thing I want to say is how Rey can use the Force and a lightsaber with no training and defeats a trained Sith, trained by both Luke and Snoke. You know, Rey can do everything. She can do no wrong. And, you know, they wanted to have a strong female character, which is fine. What about Leia and, you know, Padme, for example? You know, those are two strong female characters in Star Wars. You know, but they have flaws. You know, they're human. In many ways, that makes them relatable. Rey is perfect. Without no knowledge of the Force, she only heard of, you know, stories of some war and that Han Solo was like a general. Heard of Luke Skywalker, Jedi, and that was really all talk. Since like the Jedi in this movie are now like a myth, basically. I'm sure the Force is a myth as well too. At least I would assume, if the Jedi were just this story you tell at night or whatever. But yeah, Rey doesn't know a lot about that, if she ever heard anything at all. Not that I can recall, but you know, if you heard anything about the Force, I really doubt that there's any details about the Force, you know. Not how it's used or what the Force is or anything. At most, it's like, use the Force, and then, or there's the Force, and which helps a Jedi with his powers. And basically, Luke did this, and that was probably like it. It was by, yeah. And it's very odd that no training with the Force, she can read Kylo Ren's mind. She can use the Force or the Jedi mind trick on a stormtrooper, and then when she has the lightsaber, she can not only does she able to use the Force, knows to do that, it comes into her hand, but she fights like a Jedi would, you know, with like a trained Jedi. And it's just kind of, you know, thinking about it now, it's kind of like, wow. I just mean, I can't believe it. That's just, you know, mind blowing. Another point is Poe being a sort of new Han Solo is alive. You know, he's kind of like somewhat of a new Han Solo, and yet in the beginning, because he was captured, kind of like Leia. But he's also kind of like, aside from that, he's like set up to be kind of like this new Han Solo-like character. It seems like, but after it is alive, after he and Finn crashed on Jakku, and yet he survived the TIE Fighter crash, but we never learned how he survived or how he got back to the Resistance. It's just like it just happened. You gotta accept it. There's no explanation. Yeah. People saying this is another thing is that people are saying that this is a feminist and PC pushed into our faces strong female character that's better than everything that men are good at, as well as a black man who is served for comic relief and is scared most of the time instead of being a strong black character like Mace Windu or Lando Calrissian. Luke had to train, and throughout the original trilogy, throughout 4, 5, and 6, you see his progression from just basic lightsaber skills of blocking a remote that's shooting at him to we wanted to tell you the gist about the Force, and then 5, him spending months with Yoda training the Force and everything. Because he spends months on Hoth or on Dagobah and Hoth. I guess he could have, but spent months on Hoth. But he spends months on Dagobah. But the thing is, many people say he only trained a couple of days. Well, it's really a matter of months. But the thing is, that's how long it took the Millennium Falcon to get to Cloud City from Hoth, because it took some time, because really they didn't know exactly where to go after being shot at and pursued by the Empire. So I had to do something. But Luke he trained months with Yoda, and and then after Empire, he kind of honed in on his skills, everything that he learned, and learned from his failures and all that. There was a progression with Luke. Rey, she's able to learn. She knows how to use the Force like that, with really having no real knowledge of the Force, as I've talked about. Or if she does have knowledge of it, it's so little she wouldn't really even know how to use it. If she found out she had it, I can't see how. That would be without any explanation, which we don't really get in The Force Awakens. Finn, he's, Mace Windu and Lando Calrissian are strong black characters. They're very good characters. There's purpose for them being there. Mace Windu is the second powerful Jedi, behind Yoda. He is an important part of the Jedi Order. Lando is an old friend of Han Solo, and he double crosses Han, and yet he feels bad and tries to save him, in which he does do in Episode 6, when they all go to Tatooine to get Han out of there, as well as all the droids and Leia back. He also helps destroy the second Death Star. So, he was important to the story. Finn, though, he's just, maybe we'll say he's like a new Jar Jar Binks. He's for comic relief. He also after years of brainwashing, of being taken from his parents and raised to do one thing, to be a killing machine, essentially. After his first real experience at being in what it would be like a battle zone, of which he didn't do, but would have killed innocent, unarmed people. He sees the horror in this, and then he just decides to not do it, not be a stormtrooper anymore, and he decides to break Poe out. Particularly right after a stormtrooper is shot and then wipes his bloody hand on his helmet. That really just seals the deal then. Which, I think if that was like somewhere around halfway through the movie, he decided to just stop being with the Empire, or even for the next movie, he did that. It would have been more believable, perhaps in this movie, first half, you see him just being like a stormtrooper, just a normal stormtrooper, but about halfway through the film, we kind of see him starting to kind of grow a conscience for the first time, but we don't. First time he's in battle. He it wasn't really a battle, but I can't think of any other word that would be appropriate for it. But basically, the first time he's exposed to killing anybody, he just he freezes and he can't do it. So he decides, oh, this isn't for me, so I'm going to go and help out, and help Poe. Okay, all right. Another point is Rey being allowed, or being able to know how Starkiller Base, I want to say Skywalker, Starkiller Base works after only being on the station for a few minutes to a few hours. Movie time, it's a few hours at least. When she's only been in one room the entire time she was conscious, and then she just walks out. She knows everything and everywhere to go. She starts to just pull wires and this and that, and then knows what she's doing. All right. Another point is being rehashed versions of being a rehashed version of episode 4 while sprinkling a little of 5 and 6 on top of it just to appease the original trilogy fans. The earlier stuff I've said kind of summarized all of that, and really it was just they wanted to just appease fans of the original trilogy. There are people who people talk about how the original trilogy is fantastic, but the prequels suck. They just don't. Which brings me to my other point, which was how the prequels were being original, while people complain they don't feel like Star Wars. Yet this feels like Star Wars in the sense of the original trilogy. I always felt that the prequels felt like Star Wars. granted, I was 5 when episode 1 came out, but I watched the original trilogy on VHS within like the first 5 years of my life. That's basically before I saw The Phantom Menace, and I love all the prequels. I love all 6 Star Wars films. I grew up with them. So perhaps to me, the prequels, for that reason, have always been and have always felt like Star Wars. It seems like those that complain the prequels don't feel like Star Wars expected so much from the prequels that when they finally saw the final product of what episodes 1, 2, and 3 were, they just got angry and upset that what they had in their minds of what could happen from when it was announced that new Star Wars movies were being made that would take place before A New Hope. They envisioned all possibilities of what happened with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then the Vader came about, and all this and that once it finally was presented to them, they just didn't like it. They dismissed it. They hated it because this isn't like episodes 4, 5, and 6. This isn't like the original trilogy. I'm actually thankful now that I'm older and I love films, and I have more knowledge about films because I'm really grateful that they were original. Lucas did have this thing where he had like certain little moments in the prequels rhyme with the original trilogy, like just perhaps even just little things that you wouldn't think of being similar in tone, such as Death Star blows up in episode 4, trade control center above Naboo, which controls, all the battle droids explodes. That's similar. That's like a rhyming, Anakin gets his right arm cut off. Luke gets his right hand cut off. It's kind of like history. How history repeats itself. It's kind of like that, but not exactly. Certain things take place, but the arc of the trilogies are similar yet different. The prequels were about the downfall of Anakin. It was the tragic fall of Anakin Skywalker. The original trilogy was the triumphant rise of Luke Skywalker. And after episode 7, I really don't necessarily know exactly what the overlining theme of this trilogy is going to be. Reboot? I don't know. And then the last thought I wanted to make was George Lucas not being involved in any way. Now, originally he was supposed to be involved as a creative consultant, but he wasn't. I saw somewhere where it said Hans or Harrison Ford said, looking at the script, it's like, oh, George Lucas had input on it. He had input from the beginning and handpicked J.J. Abrams. But as closer as the movie came out, and after it did come out, saw more stuff with George Lucas, and he said that basically after he sold the rights, he gave them the story treatments that he had for episodes 7 through 9. And what Disney did was throw those out. And that, he got the very clear indication that they didn't want him involved in anything with Star Wars from this point onward. Now that they have it, and they gave him $4 billion, which he donated to charity. Whether it's his charity or not, I don't know. It was what he gave, what he donated the money to is kind of unknown at this moment. But essentially, he kind of just, he gave them his baby, which is Star Wars. He gave them Star Wars. He got money, which he donated, and then he gave them, storage treatments, only to have them thrown out, and then basically say like they don't want him. That's another thing. That's like they don't. They didn't have George Lucas involved, and I'm not saying he had to be involved in every step of the way, but having his input here and there would have helped. And I am a diehard Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars, and I just as I said in the beginning, I kind of wanted to be wrong. I wanted to be wrong of how my feelings were for Disney owning Star Wars, to the point where I even admitted it, like in this video I made, where I liked Star Wars and that Star Wars is in good hands with Disney, and time's gone by, and I'm like, I don't really feel that anymore. I don't. The spin-offs, perhaps, but with the sequels now, story after Jedi, I don't. Episode 8 will have to explain so much that what happened with certain key points before that happened between episodes 6 and 7, and just explain certain things with characters and this and that. It'll have to explain so much that by the time we get to the episode 8 story, it'll probably be over. I saw somebody once say that episode 7 was really just a trailer for episode 8. And, I can't. I don't really, well, I could argue with that, but then again, I don't exactly know how. Excuse me. And another thing is, Luke Skywalker is my favorite character, and he was used as the MacGuffin. The MacGuffin really, I don't want to say MacGuffin, because then it's kind of like he's not important, because he is. Basically, what the MacGuffin is it's something like, it's a Hitchcock movie example, like in Psycho. The money in Psycho, you think that's going to play in a very important part in the film. Which I guess that's true to Luke. But basically, because she steals the money in Psycho, right? I guess spoilers for anyone who's never seen Psycho, but anyway, she steals the money from the place she works at, and she's going to take it. She's just driving out of town. She stays at the Bates Motel, and she has, like, you could tell she's having doubts that she doesn't really want to go through with this anymore. That, like, the next morning I'm gonna go back, and then just before anyone knows it's gone, that way, no harm done. And then she's killed. Mrs. Bates comes and murders her, Mrs. Bates. So, you know, and then Norman comes and sees the body of Marion, and then he gets all the belongings. She put the money in this newspaper. He takes that and he puts that in the trunk with her body, and then he dumps the car into a swamp. The money, which seemed important, really wasn't that important to the overall story. It seems like it will be, but then it's not. Which I guess I could say is actually what Luke's part is in the film. And I guess I wouldn't mind so much if the movie wasn't a remake of episode 4 with a little bit of 5 and 6 thrown in. But it's just having your favorite character like that being used in a movie like this, and then the outcome when that character is revealed, he has like 30 seconds, a minute of screen time, maybe. And he doesn't say anything. Ray produces his lightsaber to him, like, here you go. He's like, oh. And then that's it. That's just, at least George Lucas did something different. He made something original with the prequels. He dared to, experiment and do something different. And as a result of him doing that with Phantom Menace, he had to redo certain things and plot elements for the next 2 installments of the prequels just to appease fans. And then people seemed to complain more, and then he couldn't win. He could never win. And it's because of that, he sold Lucasfilm and all, that is Star Wars, to Disney, a company that could keep Star Wars alive way after he passed on. However, I think Star Wars would always be alive because Star Wars has influenced so many movies and filmmakers and actors. Christopher Nolan has said he was inspired by Star Wars. That film's a major influence on Inception and Interstellar. Peter Jackson was influenced by Star Wars. Ridley Scott was as well, because the next movie he made after seeing Star Wars was Alien. And also James Cameron quit his job as a truck driver to become a filmmaker. So basically, if you love Titanic, you love Avatar, Terminator, The Abyss, all that stuff that James Cameron has made, because he saw Star Wars, that's the reason those movies were made, because he was so inspired and so in awe, he felt the need to make movies. So, yeah, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, is a very entertaining film. It's a good film, on its own. But when you look at it as a Star Wars film, as well as a sequel, it's kind of like have all these opportunities and you just decide not to take any chances like George Lucas. Don't take any risks. Because what they saw was, well, Lucas took some risk, and and good for him to try to do something different, but that didn't work because fans said it didn't work, and fans didn't like Jar Jar and pacing of this and then the romance, and but the story of the prequels is great. You know, do I love Jar Jar? I like Jar Jar. I like Jar Jar a lot more when I was younger, but as my appreciation level for the prequels has gone, my like of that character has not necessarily been hasn't necessarily grown as much. But I still like Jar Jar. He was all right. And then with that Darth Jar Jar theory that somebody posted, it really makes you think of that character in that certain way. But I think people have even said that watch the Phantom Menace and notice all this and that, and it makes more sense. But you know, uh, it's one of those things that you hope you're wrong about. That's what I was hoping. I was wrong. I was wrong about Disney owning Star Wars, and it would all be just as good as when Lucas had it. It had creative control, input, what have you, had involvement in it. Even Empire and Jedi, even though he didn't direct those, he was involved in it as much as the creator of any series would want to be. And should be. If I created a movie series or whatever, and I decide, let someone else take over it, I would like to have some sort of input in what happens with it. That way, I know the series is in good hands. Um, and as well as obviously trusting the people who are making it. They have their vision, but also kind of like, this is how I envision this to go. In a way, it's like the story should go like this. So what you need to do is get it there, but get it to how I would like it to be in your own way, how you see fit, how you feel the story I have laid out for you to make. You get to decide how the direction of this story that is written down on here goes. And I would like to be involved and just kind of see how things go here and there, maybe a phone call if I can't be in there in person, just to see how things are going. I would like to be involved with it. And George Lucas wanted to be involved with the new ones, but like a consultant, but he wasn't in the end. Disney didn't want him. They probably felt he would be a problem. And would he have been a problem? I don't know. We don't know. We won't get to know now. I guess that's all I have to say about it. Force Awakens is not a terrible film, but is it the best Star Wars film as everybody says it is? I don't think so. No, I don't exactly know where I would rank it. Would it be at the bottom? Perhaps, but I don't know. I've never really ranked Star Wars, though I have to say probably the original trilogy would be first, then the prequels. Though I've always often said, like, if I had to choose a favorite Star Wars movie, it would probably be Episode 4. So by that, I think that, Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope is my favorite film of all time. I don't know exactly how I would rank Star Wars films. Um, I love the prequels a lot, of the original trilogy a lot, and without seeing the next three films, the follow, or two films, to follow Force Awakens, I really need to see those to truly see exactly how this whole story so far will work out. I wonder how episodes 10 through 12 would work, because I know Lucas told Mark Hamill that I read somewhere where he was, or it was an interview actually with Mark Hamill where he was saying, it was an old interview where he's like talking to George Lucas off, said, George is like, he was kind of talking about, or I was talking to him about the movie, and said, about the next two movies, I'm not really wanting any real spoilers, but he was just kind of curious exactly how the kind of story would go, and he said to him, I can't. I see this as like episode as a 12-part series, and the thing is, like, this is just like be like 4, and the next two would be 5 and 6, and then what we'll do is do 1, 2, and 3, and then bring you back for like uh, the 7th one to be like the wizard passing down Excalibur to the next generation of Jedi. That's kind of like how Mark Hamill said that what George Lucas told him about this Star Wars series, of how it could possibly go, and not, or at least how he envisioned it at that time. So he originally intended it to obviously as one movie, but I think because of how big it got and so many sections were here and there, he just decided, I'll make 3 and have like the back, the kind of like the prologue, make that into 3 movies, and then yeah, and the rest of the history will be history when it's all done. Star Wars comes out next month. Are you excited for it? Are you not? What did you think of The Force Awakens? Do you agree with anything I said or anything name here has said? Or no? I guess you can discuss in the comments if you want, or not. Whatever. It's like your opinion, man. You can do that if you want or not. Agree with me, disagree with me, hate me, love me, whatever. Oh, and I have to say that's it. I'm just kind of rambling now. The Jerry Wignall Show. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I gotta say for now. Peace out.